There I am.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's up,
What
RVD?
Hey, what up? Happy Thursday.
To lower your
Yeah,
camera.
right.
You got
There he is.
Perfect.
And quit bossing me around. I just got here. I don't want to. Yeah.
How you doing? You still in Vegas, by the way?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Where do
I
you
am.
live?
In the Spring Valley,
Spring
west
Valley?
side. West side.
Cool.
West
Yeah,
side.
it's not far.
Yeah.
I'm Southern Highlands.
Where did you
so
used
we're
to
not- we're
live?
probably
In
not that far from
Michigan?
each other.
Well, I haven't lived in Michigan since I was like 18 or 19. I moved from LA. I lived in LA for 20 years before I moved here.
And
When was
like
the
a
last time
lot
you've
of
been
people
back? Let me
that
ask you a question. When was the last time you've been back to LA?
WrestleMania.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
We see this, like, I'm not from LA. I'm in Vegas, and we hear all the stories about how LA is just going to hell. Have you noticed the changes there? Like, is it noticeable when you go back?
I've noticed a little bit, but my experiences there haven't been very broad. So if I hadn't heard any corroboration, I would assume maybe it was only my experience. But I did happen to have to see it pretty rough when I was there, and the parts that I saw downtown and on the way to that new really nice big arena that Mania was at. But on the way there, we went through some riffraff.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, because a lot of people, as you know, have migrated from California to Vegas,
Yeah.
including my boy Rey Mysterio. And by the way, let me shout you out because I saw at the Cauliflower Alley. It's always nice to see you. One of my best friends, Disco, who lives in Vegas, didn't have the
Never heard
time to
of him.
show up, and yeah, never. He's a bum. But is one of the reasons that you moved to Vegas because it's so expensive in California?
No, that's actually, I guess, like a side benefit. I
Right.
actually forget about that, and that's the first thing everybody mentions when they hear I
Right.
live in Vegas. First thing out of everyone's mouth is like, "Oh, the taxes are better there, right?" And
Right.
it's for me, it's that's like a secondary thought after being here. I love the West Coast. This is almost it's considered West Coast. Vegas
Yeah.
is like the backyard of LA. We're not coastal, but
So why did you move?
so I loved LA.
Right.
LA. The reason I moved from LA to Vegas. One, I've always planned on doing that. I bought a house out here in 2005, and I've been trying to make my way ever since. My evil ex used to tell me, if you move to Vegas, you're doing it on your own. And
Right.
and it was after the divorce that I ended up
Right.
moving here because then I could. But I always loved it out here because there's so much to do. The weather is not as good as California, but way better than Michigan or anywhere on the East Coast, in my opinion. No humidity.
I always tell people that are complaining about like climate change and stuff. And I say, like, what do you think it's gonna do? Like, how hot do you think it's gonna get? Because like we live here in Vegas and we're fine. It's like really hot during the summer, but it's not like we're near death or anything. It's just like, and during the fall and winter, the weather is fantastic. It never really gets, bro. You don't need anything more than a hoodie in this town. It
feels so
never
great.
gets super cold. It's great weather.
It gets a little extremely cold and a little extremely hot, but I'll take 108 in Vegas over like 89 in Florida.
Yeah, with the humidity for sure. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to
Always-
Atlanta. My mom lives in Atlanta. I go back and I could spend like 4 days there tops.
Yeah.
Just because I go in the summertime and it's humid, you're sweat. Like you get in the car and your shirt's sweaty and stuff. It's just like it's not near as comfortable. Like it is.
Always the sweatiest motherfucker in the room. Always.
Yeah, right. right.
Let me ask you, Rob. Do you remember this? And I'm
Are
talking
you smoking
about.
cannabis, by the way, while we're doing this? Because Conan
trying.
gets high every podcast too. This is the first
true.
time I think we've had 2 people smoking on the same time. Congratulations, Rob. Well
Maybe.
done. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm a big fan of. And Rob, hey,
Hey, what's up?
Yo.
how you doing? Do you remember when it comes to bongs and joints and all that? My favorite is the blunt, which is I think is what you're smoking.
That's not really do you remember, but yes. My favorite
Oh.
is also to roll a doobie. Over the years I've gone through phases. Smoked a pipe for a while, a bong for a while. When I met Katie, I was just doing dabs, which you have to have an enormous tolerance for because you're just
very strong,
big concentrated amount in a short little snap. And I would just do that all day. Now I hardly ever do dabs. I just roll doobies. So whenever I do a dab, it knocks me on my ass now because I'm not conditioned.
Rob, you're like this. So I don't know if you ever heard of this. Do you remember that X-Pac, like a couple years ago, was doing the show in LA that it was called Get High, Watch Wrestling?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was a comedy show. Who's the comedian that was with the Konnan? You remember?
Ron Funches.
Ron Funches.
So what they would do is, you know, that Botchamania thing where they show all the botches? They would put a Botchamania thing for like 15 minutes, and him and some comedians like Ron Funches and people that were in the Amy Schumer show, they make fun of it while everybody was high, and it was hilarious. So I went to the back, and Funches was doing dabs, and I had only done it a couple times, and they have very unassuming names like Lamb's Hair, Girl Scout Cookies. So you think it's very weak.
Purple Sky.
Bro, I hit that shit. And a couple minutes later, the manager of the place was saying, "Sir, you have to get up off the floor. I'm going to call the cops."
Oh my God.
It just knocked me out, bro. But here's the question. Yeah.
How many dabs you do? Usually it takes 3 to do that.
A lot. Yeah. More than I should have. And so here was the question. Do you remember about 25 years ago? I don't know how Antonio Pena, who is the founder of AAA, got a tape of you. I think you had sent it to him, and that we were going to bill you as Jean-Claude Van Damme's cousin because you look so much like him, and you were doing the martial arts. Do you remember that or no?
I just remember talking to Antonio Pena about getting booked. There was a guy, I still see him around. This guy, I think he lives in Queens or something.
Yeah. Frank Patz.
Okay, yeah. I still see him at conventions once in a while. Nice guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, nothing ever came of that. But when I got the name, when Ron Slinker gave me the name Jean-Claude Van Damme, he told me to tell people that I was his cousin. So I owe a few apologies to people from 92, 93, especially around the independent areas, like where I met Disco, and we wrestled in those towns, Spartanburg and Baxley.
You were the first because I saw. Did you notice that old match we had for Greg Price popped back up on the internet? Did you see that? I think you retweeted it, right?
I think it's Rob's YouTube. I think it's your YouTube, isn't it?
Your YouTube channel, right?
It's probably Union City.
Yeah, you were.
I got someone helping me post stuff, so I sent him some VHS tapes, and I don't know what's on them because I don't have a VHS player. So he's transferring over to make them digital and putting them up there. But I totally remember that match from Union, South Carolina. It was right after they had this big news because this lady drove her kids into the pond and drowned everybody.
Wow. Yeah,
it was back then that kind of drama was unheard of.
Right.
Yeah, because it's funny because
Susan Smith, I think was her
name.
Was
You had a name. You had a pretty good name, but I think on the indies, you were that was the first match that I would consider a high profile match for me. Like you were the first guy that I had wrestled that wasn't one of the guys I trained with or just some other Georgia indie guy and everything. I was like, wow, I'm wrestling Rob Van Dam now, stuff yeah, it was the first. It was a good match too. But
that's funny
that when you go back and see how green you were back in the day. I remember during that time. Remember how good we thought we were back then. And it's and then you go back and watch again. It's wow, I was really green. But I thought it was great, So,
but if I could just point out, life is the exact same way out of the ring for me. If you don't look back at yourself and cringe, you probably haven't grown.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very good point.
100%.
So, and you know what's funny, because the first guy that I ever wrestled that had a big name, because I started in Mexico my whole career, right? So the first time was a convention, and I don't know if you know this guy, that John Orezi did. And it was me versus Sabu, and this might have been in 94. Now, I'd only seen Sabu on tape. I'd never met him, but he showed up with the Sheik as his manager. And he was like, yeah, the Sheik usually doesn't let me do this, but it's okay for me to do the job. And I was asking, bro, why are you breaking all these tables? Because you're gonna end up crippled one day. And he was like, because I got to do something to stand out, you know. And the reason I say this because I read Sabu's book. Because he's been on here, I think, twice, right? One was a classic meltdown, which you've got to hear.
He came in hot. He came in super hot.
He came in hot and he
They
left.
started
hot.
talking about Paul Heyman. He got flustered and just dropped out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, bombed him to death.
Right.
But so I read this book. I read Sabu's book, and in it, he talks about how you and him started training together behind the Sheik's back and all that. What was it like working with the Sheik? Because I was a big fan of him.
Well, we had tremendous respect for him. We were also afraid of him. Like, he intimidated us, and he kept it that way. And when I say us, it wasn't like there was a class. Besides me and Sabu, there was only 3 other guys total, and they weren't always there, at the same time. So it was usually just 3 or 4 of us. And he kept us scared. He never smartened us up, ever. I swear, never one time did he say, here's the right way to land and not get hurt. Never once did he say, here's the right way to throw a guy and take care of him. It was never any of that. It was all just, grab each other harder, squeeze tighter, keep each other close, in, protect the business. And anytime someone's shoulders are down, what are you doing? Pin him. What are you doing? He's down. Beat him. That's how it was. And that's why, we knew that, we had to work together to an extent. Otherwise, it would just be a struggle. And we were, we weren't stupid, and we were big fans, but it didn't take any smartening up from him. It was the opposite, anything.
What's so funny? I'm sorry to cut you off. You know what's so funny about what you just said? Because the Sheik, what I loved about him is he always stayed in character. I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories. Do you know Damien 666? Okay, well, him and Sabu and Sheik used to wrestle together in Japan. I think it was for FMW. Yeah. And he says that the Sheik would go out in traffic and, just stop traffic and la BB and, doing all these things. And he was always in character. And so, they had this show from Japan that went to the United States, and they went to, the Destroyer's house. They went to Stan Hansen's house. They went to all these, and everybody came out normal. Sheik was the only guy that came out in character, and I said, "This guy's awesome."
Yeah, yeah. Well, we
were you old enough to ever see him live?
Yeah, my very first wrestling show, I believe, was the last show that he promoted, and it was in Toledo, Ohio, in 1990. I think that was the last big-time wrestling show. It was supposed to be at the Speedway, but it got rained out, so we were inside. He wrestled Abdul the Butcher at that show.
Wait, I want to get back to what you said before about training. So what was the Sheik teaching you guys then? Like, if he's not really even smartening you up, like when you would go in, go work and have a match based on what he taught you, were you confused when they were given to finish it, or what?
No, we were smart enough on our own to make that work. But when it came to moves, he was all about locking up, headlock, go behind waist lock, arm bars. Over and over and over. It was he wanted us we couldn't do that convincingly enough ever to make him happy. And that was going to be our foundation. So anytime during a match, we could grab an arm bar and know how to do that. So he taught us just to protect the business. And so for him, it was always about, he taught us those moves. So we would do it. We would lock up, do a waist lock, go behind or whatever. And then it was always just, it needed to be stiffer. We looked like a couple of girls, he would say.
Who showed you your flying arsenal? Because obviously Sheik didn't. Were you self-taught?
Pretty much. I mean,
wow.
I pretty much was. There was a few things that I asked Sabu to help me with, and then we just worked them out together,
Did you used to be a gymnast or something, or no?
No, but I showed off on a diving board and showed off on a trampoline down the street.
Right.
So I was acrobatic, and then
Well, it seems like the most difficult skill, the one you probably picked up pretty quick, is not a lot of people can jump from the apron onto the top rope. just like, but you just put and just land right, So once you can get that down, it's like, wow, I can feel pretty comfortable on the ropes and stuff, everything, because like that's one thing that when I tried like a lot of high flying stuff early in my career, like tried the moves, and I was actually not that bad at them. Like I did a move where I would.
He's very clumsy, Rob. Don't believe him.
I would hit them. I would run. I would hit the second ropes with my feet and spin backwards and catch a guy in a bulldog. Like I hit him, so like good, but it was like
not true, Rob.
I couldn't do it enough correctly to do it in a match. Completely true. But then it was like, I could do all the stuff, but it was like, just. I like the honky tonk man. I just like doing like dancing and stuff. And I just like kind of changed my whole like arsenal of moves. But like,
I remember one time me and Sabu were the only ones training. The ring was in his backyard at this time. He had moved it from the Sheiks for whatever reason, and we were doing a crossbody off the top rope with our back to the ring, right? And we're just taking turns catching, like. Sabu would stand there, and I would just hop up to the, pull myself up in one leap to the top rope and go up just as high as I possibly could, get as much arch, and then come down, and he'd catch me, boom. And then he would take a turn, and we just did it over and over, and it seemed like we kept going higher and higher, and it just became something that we gravitated towards. And then it was like probably not long before I wrestled you, Disco, that I noticed what was standing out, like working those shows for Greg Price. Right. I remember him saying, I was wrestling Manny Fernandez, and he was like, would you mind doing that crossbody over the top rope that you do? And I was like, no, you like that? Yeah, I can do that. And then I started noticing like, hey, people are impressed by these moves. So, and back then, people weren't doing two flips and or an inward double flip.
We grew up in the we were kind of like at that tail end of like breaking into business when it was still old school, before like this. So we kind of like came in with guys that were protecting the business, kayfabe, and stuff and all that. But it was interesting, when you start like you were very like unique. And like you're a high flyer, like wow, this guy's doing some really cool stuff in it. Because back then it was like you said, we were all very proficient basics: tackle, drop down, leapfrog, hammer, like all the simple moves, and everything. And then like when people started seeing you, it's like wow, this guy's like really like you knew you were going to get hired. So we're like you eventually have a good career because like you're just one of the first guys that stood out like a sore thumb. And I was very impressed. So.
Like some of the guys that did inspire me weren't as successful with it, like Leaping Lanny Poffo. Right. The guy got beat every night, but as a fan, I was just drawn because he would jump up and do a flying head scissors, and I was just, no one was doing that. He was the
only guy doing the moonsault at the time.
Who Rob, who were you inspired by? Any high flying wrestlers?
Well, besides Lanny Poffo, there was also Owen Hart when he was Blue Blazer,
right.
Yeah. And Brady Boone, especially when he was Firecat or Hellcat in Japan. And, the guys that they did made
who I thought was very who I thought was very unique, Rob? Two Coat Scorpio.
Oh yeah.
Especially
What's
for
funny?
His height and weight.
It's funny. Yeah. I met him in '93. I started in '92 in WCW in December, and I don't remember Scorpio. No, maybe the Scorpio was there before me, but I met him around there, 92, 93. And he did the 1.5, and I was the only one that I'd seen do that, so I totally thought that he copied me because I had sent a tape, that had gotten there, and I totally thought, man, I was watching him before I got there, so I was thinking, man, he stole my flip and a half, but I would never.
Because back then stealing moves was a thing because there weren't a lot of moves. It was like somebody's doing this. So I was like, you couldn't really it would be very obvious if you were stealing moves back then because nobody was doing a lot of unique stuff, So
and then it was weird. Then I started learning like one finish in this company would be someone else's finish in the other company, and it was like, and I still get confused, and it's like that's so not our time that I laugh. because the wrestlers that are doing it now name the moves after the people they're ripping off,
Right,
like,
right.
like that's
But
okay.
what did you?
I'll hit you with the Disco Inferno spinning ball. I'll
Right.
be like, what's the Disco
Yeah.
Inferno
Yeah, like-
spinning ball?
Yeah,
I-
the disco crash.
I had come from WCW and I'd gotten fired, right? So there was a period of time when I was just working indies for like five or 6 months, right? And I never really watched a lot of ECW, but I'd seen some of it, right? So I'm wrestling Stevie Richards on an indie show one time, and he's going over all like, I'm okay. I'm going to hit you with the Stevie Bomb and I'm like, what are you? What are? It's like I don't even know what you're talking about. You're like, you had all these moves named and something going. Well, what is that? Like like I was supposed to know. So
What did you think the first time you saw Rey Mysterio in Psychosis match?
Oh, dude, I was so blown away that was when I was starting to hear from my peers, from other wrestlers, and from the industry in general, that I was gifted, and that I was athletically gifted. Some of them were saying, in their opinion, I was like the most athletically gifted wrestler. And I remember like I wasn't used to hearing that. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. At the same time, I was like, how can they say that when I'm watching, Rey Mysterio and Psychosis? Like they're doing all kinds of flips with twists. I mean, what are they doing? What am I doing? They're not doing. And I've always kind of shared that perspective. And some people say, well, but you're, 240 pounds doing it and whatever, man. I've always been impressed with the athleticism. And now,
And the creativity, and you're very creative.
In the average wrestler now, what would you say? He's like 180 pounds. So that makes it a lot more guys that do wrestle like that.
Yeah. Our mega fan over here, the guy that has the Unabomber closet outright look, Joe Feeney, he's a mega ECW fanboy.
True.
And he wrote a whole bunch of notes here. And one of them that I didn't even know about this it said that you had heat with Jericho in WWE.
I don't think there was any like real heat, I've shared like some of my personal feelings, like when we were working together, and there was like sometimes like struggle at that time of me trying to get used to the politics and having him be a factor where he was already there and kind of represented the opposing side on that, but there wasn't any time like that I can remember where we were like gonna fight or
yeah, because he's our good friend. I was hoping you would tell us something so we could bust his balls.
No, he was surprised the first time he heard that when I had done an interview and I just said, he made it hard for me to adjust, and it was like
it was Jay Moore, right? You're on the Jay Moore show.
Oh, maybe that's
now. Rob, let me ask you this: How hard was it for you to acclimate yourself to WWE? Because number one, you're coming from ECW, which wasn't respected by them, and you don't know the WWE style. How hard was that to deal with?
It was challenging, but obviously not something I couldn't overcome because I did all right with it, but it did drive me nuts. I went through cycles of frustration when I thought, I was going to leave and take the next flight home. And then, a couple of days later, I'd be like, wow, because cool things would happen. I loved it that I was representing ECW, and then I loved it that I had the hardcore championship, and then and of course I loved it when we brought ECW back in 2006 or whenever that was. And so there were certain times where I was just so motivated, I was let's go, I'm ready. And then there's other times where the monotony and just feeling like I kicked and humbled to the point to where I was covered with dirt,
Why did you end up? Why did you end up leaving?
I needed to get away. I just had enough. My contract was coming up. They had destroyed ECW, and personally, they weren't doing much with me. I don't know if they were trying to get me to go through and then work my way back up or what, but I found myself just in a place where I was not spiritually well. And that's why I left, because I realized that my spirit needed a serious tune-up. And that was something I couldn't do while I was under those conditions. I had to leave. I couldn't tell him how long it was going to take. Johnny H was like, "Why don't you take 3 months off?" And I was like, I can't do that. You know, I'll be counting the days until my 3 months is up, because that's what I'm doing subconsciously every time I got 48 hours off. And it was just so crazy, you know. And he was like, "Why don't you resign and then take 6 months off?" And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not going to know until I get there how long it's going to take. And fact is, you know, I never went back to full time.
Let me ask you, Rob, because this is the question that, you know, I've heard rumors for a long time now. It's been 20 plus years, and Konnan Disco might not be aware of it. But when the rumors were that Eric Bischoff was going to buy WCW with Fusion Media, you were ECW was folding. You didn't work there for a couple of months because of pay, I think. You came back for the pay-per-view and all. But the rumors were always that you were like either this close to signing with WCW or that you did, and that you're going to be a big part of the new WCW when it came back. What was actually the deal there?
Yeah, so I wasn't really close to signing. They had Eric Bischoff had personally pitched to me a job offer at a WCW show, and after that, there was some follow-up with a lot of miscommunication. So DDP was reaching out to me, telling me that Eric wanted to do these Mortal Kombat characters, and I was going to be perfect for it. And I just kept letting it, you know, roll off my shoulder, being, oh, all right, whatever. And then he'd say, call him. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, DDP would hit me back. He'd be like, dude, did you call Eric yet? And I'm like, no. He's like, dude, what are you waiting for, man? I told him you were going to call him. Like, he's going to put a lot into this, man. They're going to really, you know, it's going to be like, there's going to be a bunch of characters. They're going to have lights, you know, the big presentation.
You're probably going to be Glacier.
Yeah,
you were probably going to be Glacier.
Or maybe he would have been
like the same thing, like, you know, it's the same type of bill, right? Yeah.
He could have been Mortis or one of the other guys in it.
Rob, let me ask you this. When did you start doing stand-up comedy? How long ago?
I think my first time was in 2006 or 2007.
Okay, so you've been doing that for that's been on the. What do you call it a hobby, or like you know, something you've had in your pocket? Like, so how is it like because when you did this stuff in Impact where you turned heel, bro, that stuff was just so funny. You know, like, was that like one of the first times that you like had like a chance to be kind of like comedic and something like you know like that part of your character wrestling, or had you done that before?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've made that association in my own mind. You know, being a heel is always fun, you know, because you can capitalize on some thoughts that are floating in there that you wouldn't normally talk about. And besides that, you know, it's like I don't think it's very much like my stand-up, you know, which is all just about me delivering my set, what I want to do. And, you know, it's something I've done for a long time, but it doesn't make me, you know, it's not like I'm doing it full time or whatever. Sometimes I'll do a show and 6 months will go by and I'll do another show or whatever. But it is something that I'm now comfortable with, and doing it in front of, you know, a crowd, whether they're there to see me or popping up on unannounced. I like to do that and just work a crowd that is there to laugh and see comedy. But I don't know, because I'm like really dry, and like being
like Stephen Wright.
Stephen Wright was my favorite. Stephen Wright was my favorite.
He was
great.
So
awesome. When he's like,
yeah. And Bob Hart, Bob Hope.
Did you see him? He recently was on Rogan, the Joe Rogan podcast. Stephen Wright was. You should check it out. It's just he hadn't lost a beat. You know, he's still hysterical. Yeah.
I bought some batteries. They weren't included. I love
it. Yeah. Bought some evaporated water. You know what to add.
Right.
Yeah. So you must have liked Mitch Hedberg too, Rob.
I love Mitch Hedberg too. Yeah. Those are you know, putting Bob Hope in there when I was real young. Those are like the only three guys really that I can think of to describe like my influence and what I grew up on and what what I appreciated. I mean, it's called intelligent humor. It makes you think a little bit, as opposed to screaming to get their attention. And there's all kinds of whether you want to call them
Like
techniques, you know what I mean? Like, well, I'm going to do little kids' voices, make everyone laugh, or I'm going to scream and make faces. And for me, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. That's funny. But I'm not very dramatic, not in my response or my delivery.
Have you ever had any issues, like you see comedians, like the evolution of comedy is kind of like is becoming, it's different. It's like a lot of comedians are fearful of saying the wrong things because they don't want to be too offend. They don't want to offend people. Like there's this whole like there's this really weird thing now, like that people that go to comedy shows like aren't under the premise that you're there to be offended. It's like they're sometimes he's got these percentage of fans that go there that they get offended. Like get offended, and it's like weird. Like did you see that over the course of, like, have you ever experienced any of that in any of your sets where a fan just like was shitting on your material because he didn't think it was politically correct or anything like that?
Not shitting on my material, but definitely the awareness. I'm very vibration conscious, and
right.
I did a show in Vegas where I had some material I wanted to go up that night, so I just got a hold of some people like, hey, where can I go tonight just to get up on stage unannounced? And the place I went set new standards for me because I don't want to do bars anymore. It's just like there's like maybe 15, 20 people there. Half of them were having their own conversations, and it was like, even though it's Vegas, it was like so redneck. It was like such a low budget place.
That's probably where Disco lives. What area do you live in, Disco?
Southern Highlands, good part of town.
The thing about it, though, is like I wanted, to deliver my material, and I knew it's on a situation like that. For me, it's about my delivery. I'm not wanting to get somewhere in comedy to where like I need to learn to master this crowd of 20, really white redneck people that can't hear me. For me, it's like. It's not about that, So, but anyway, I did notice, like I said something, and I mentioned segregation, and black people, and the people that were listening were like, ooh, and they all turned and looked at the one black guy that was there, who was the host of the comedy night. He was the comedian that was hosting the comedy night, but it stood out. He was the only black guy there, and what I said was like so not offensive. They totally missed the point just because they felt uncomfortable because I said,
it's like they wanted to be offended. It's like they were, all right, here he comes. He's going to offend somebody now. Like, here he comes. Right.
And then they snitched on him. Like, hey, did you hear what he said? Yeah.
It's an entitlement. It's people feel entitled. And in so many ways, they're falsely entitled. It's a problem. It's a problem with basic thinkers. Just like people that have guns, out of so many of these crazy, normal, basic thinkers, they just think they got a way to solve their problems. So they get angry and they shoot. I watch this stuff every day on YouTube. I pick up the news, someone's shooting someone through the doorway because the neighbor was coming over and they were arguing or something. You can't do that. You can't pull your gun out and stick it at someone's head just because, they came over and asked, if you yelled at their kid. And it's like, people feel entitled, and it's a comfortable feeling because you feel like, hey, I'm owe this. Just like when people get angry and they act crazy and shit, they feel like you're goddamn right. I'm angry. Like they feel like I have a right to be stupid and to yell and to be senseless, But when you think about it, why would you want to do that?
But what's the deal with
as far as PC and content and stuff, Disco, you remember because we were doing the show at this time when Rob was on Impact. Actually, some of the skits with you and Katie caused Impact a problem with Twitch, right? Didn't Twitch? They censored it or they took the show down or something, right?
They censored our threesome scene with
that's
with
awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny. Let me ask you a question. So you got a new podcast out. What's it called now?
One of a kind. It's on Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
are you a one-man show or you have guests?
No, I got a guy. Well, so far it's just me and my my host, Dominic D'Angelo. You might know him or his brother. His brother does some of the guys. What does he do? Does he do Jake? I don't know, someone that I was just watching. But and they both do a couple. He also does something on Kurt Angle's show. But good guy, knows the business, and we're doing it like once a week, and eventually I'll probably interview some people, but I don't think I want that to be the foundation of what I do because, I did that years ago with RVD Radio, and after a while it became like a job to feel like I had to book somebody, and I sucked at it. I would never do it till like 5 minutes before the show, and I'd be hitting people up like, "Hey, can you talk on the radio for a few minutes, dude?" And I just right now it's basically just me giving my perspective on different stuff. Dominic will ask me about some current stuff going on TV with wrestling, stuff that I've done, that I'm doing. I'm still traveling, still keeping really busy, wrestling some, doing a lot of appearances. Did a movie last week. Sometimes I do stand up, and doing personal stuff in between makes me super busy. So gonna be in. I don't know when this is gonna air, so I don't know, but.
It'll air this weekend, yeah.
Well, this weekend I'll be in Jacksonville, Florida at River City Wrestling Convention on Sunday. So it's always cool to see some of the other wrestlers. I can't remember who's going to be there, but whoever they were, I was happy when I saw the poster. But so that's basically what the podcast is. It's on like once a week now, and it's been really good. It's been getting an increasingly nice gathering, and putting the clips on my YouTube page is also like seeing a steady increase in the following on my YouTube, which is cool because I also post other videos on my YouTube, like of my travels and of my RVDology, stuff like that.
Go check out.
Let me throw this in there because it's what Dominic sent me. So you can get One of a Kind everywhere every Monday at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. The full video version.
That's
the
great.
full video version comes out early on Friday at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Rob's YouTube channel for clips and exclusive content at rvdpod.com. rvdpod.com on Twitter and Instagram as well.
Yo, check out our boys RVD's new podcast. Are you on Twitter?
The real RVD. Me, but I think my podcast is too, RVD Prod or something. I don't know.
Okay.
You still have,
I think I saw it on there too.
do you still have an involvement with cannabis products or THC or anything like that?
Currently, no. Okay. I have some deals on the table that may or may not happen that involve just licensing my brand, which is as far as I want to go now. After getting screwed over by my partners, Justin Sampras and Jesse Daly, I don't want to own or manufacture or have any of that, as far as putting my brand, endorsing product that I approve of the graphics and all that. I'll put my stamp on it like that I'm interested in that. So that's all you will see as far as I know of moving forward.
Cool.
All right, Rob. One last time, everybody go check out his new podcast. Starts at 4:20. Love the time. And thank you very much for being on Keeping It 100. Boom.
Oh, right on, guys.
Peace. Rob, thanks for your time.
Very much, Rob. Thanks for your time, man.
Appreciate you. See y'all soon.
Peace.
Somewhere.
All right.
See you, brother.
All right.
Care,
all right.
Yo, what up? This is Konnan, and I host Keeping It 100, my co-host, Disco Inferno, unfortunately.
Well, I'd say you're my co-host.
Listen, every Thursday here on Spreaker, we talk pro wrestling, sports, movies, music, TV, pop culture, and some politics. It's everything the rest of the pro wrestling podcasts are not.
Tune in to hear myself, the superior one, educate and inform.
Tune in to hear me bury Disco.
That's very disrespectful.
Join us every Thursday on Spreaker and keep it 100. Boom!